The city courthouse sat in a haze of late autumn drizzle, the marble steps shining like wet mirrors under weak orange street lamps. Inside, a room meant for crowds stood nearly empty. Just a trembling girl in a second-hand satin dress, the smell of mothballs still clinging to its seams, and a man so old his eyes looked carved from candle wax. A single bulb buzzed overhead. No siblings to fix her veil, no giddy friends to toss rice. The clerk, jaded by years of traffic tickets, mumbled the vows as if reciting inventory. Outside the cracked window, buses rumbled past, their passengers staring at neon ads and never at the strange scene unfolding almost silently behind them. The girl, Amira, though no one here knew her name, recited "I do," because the lawyer standing behind her had whispered the line moments before. The old man tried to echo it. What escaped instead was a rasp, half breath, half memory. The clerk shrugged and stamped the license anyway. 2 gold rings touched for a blink, cameras clicked for the tabloids, and Amira was escorted away before the ink dried. In the corridor she glanced back, expecting scolding eyes or some crumb of comfort, but the millionaire had already slumped in his wheelchair, oxygen hiss competing with the rain. 30 minutes later the marriage was sealed, filed, irreversible until tomorrow morning when another form would dissolve it. By dawn, newspapers would roar about a monster preying on innocence. Tonight, though, the monster's heart pumped slower than the dripping faucet in the clerk's bathroom, and no one alive could hear how terrified he was of dying before his plan was done. Downstairs, a street violinist played a lullaby no one paid for, the notes floating like fragile doves over puddles. Each note seemed to beg the universe, hold on, just one more night. By sunrise, the city's chatter turned feral. Headlines blared across screens in subway cars, depraved tycoon weds child bride number 47. Comment sections erupted like volcanoes, each lava-hot take smothering the last. Jail the coffin dodger, one post screamed, racking up 50,000 likes before breakfast. Morning radio hosts laughed through spittle-flecked microphones, pretending outrage tasted sweet. In cafes, blurred photos of Amira's frightened eyes sat beside espresso foam. Nobody bothered to learn her name. Pundits glued to ring lights called for international tribunals, while lobbyists drafted new laws they hoped would never pass so they could keep yelling about them. School lockers, factory floors, manicured boardrooms, everywhere people scrolled and gasped, intoxicated by collective fury. A late-night comedian compared the wedding to tax evasion wrapped in lace, earning thunderous applause. No one asked why the ceremony was always private, why the bride disappeared by dawn, why the millionaire never touched champagne at the reception. Questions spoil easy narratives. And easy narratives go viral. By lunchtime, Silas Grant's face loomed on every bus stop display, skin pocked by age, pupils digitally enlarged to appear more menacing. Opposite his portrait, graphic designers pasted candy-colored emojis of broken hearts and flame icons because heartbreak and arson measure clicks the same. A protest hashtag trended first in Manila, then Lagos, then New York, #NChildgroom. Editorials predicted riots, investors whispered about withdrawing from his companies, and shareholders met behind frosted glass to strategize distance. All the while, Silas lay in a hospital bed receiving another unit of blood. Doctors adjusted his chart, unaware social media had already written his obituary. In that fee-drunk world, nobody knew about the ledger of trust funds or the annulment forms waiting at dawn. Every refresh brought new vitriol, each emoji pitchfork sharper than the last outburst online. Cassandra Miles, corporate attorney, former valedictorian, perpetual runner-up for partner, slammed her office door so hard the glass rattled like loose teeth. She'd sworn last year to ditch elder law purgatory, maybe teach ethics instead. Yet here she was shredding hate mail addressed to her newest client, the living legend of moral collapse. In law school, they promised logic could tame chaos. This morning's inbox proved otherwise. Accessory to child abuse, threatened one email, complete with pixelated gun emojis. On her desk lay 52 crisp folders, each stamped with a girl's name and a future only ink could unlock. She remembered meeting the old man 2 months ago, when he slid a check across polished oak the way others slid apologies. "Buy your conscience whatever it costs," he'd said, voice brittle but eyes terrifyingly clear. Cassandra had laughed then, a reflexive bark, but the figures were astronomical, and the stories in those folders were worse than nightmares. Girls trafficked, girls starving, girls stalked by statistics destined to kill them before 20. She thought about her younger sister lost to a foster home scam, about the silence that followed. The thought pinned her like a tack. So she stayed. Now, paparazzi lenses glittered below her 32nd floor window, hungry vultures orbiting steel. She opened folder number 28, Amira Duarte, age 13, birth country unspecified, languages Spanish, English, survival. A clerk's seal confirmed yesterday's marriage, today's scheduled annulment, tomorrow's deposit of $5 million into a trust Amira alone could touch at 18. Cassandra exhaled, feeling the weight of a gavel she could never swing. Outside, protesters chanted for blood. Inside, she whispered a promise to every picture staring back at her, "I won't flinch." The clock ticked loud as a verdict. Somewhere below, sirens wailed, reminding her that justice never waited for comfort, not in this town. Silas Grant had been dying for 3 years, but the doctors only named it last winter, as if a label could delay the rot. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4, metastatic, irreversible. He kept the scan in his pocket like a boarding pass out of this life and into whatever came next. Today, bundled in a plaid blanket on his penthouse balcony, he watched dawn scrape gold off the skyline and wondered which of the girls was eating breakfast for the first time. He pictured Amira spreading butter, laughing at the luxury of toast that wasn't stale. His nurse, Malik, checked vitals and muttered about bad weather. Silas waved him off and asked instead for the folder marked number 37, Tomorrow's Bride. Cassandra delivered it in person, her eyes shadowed by sleepless conviction. Silas opened to the first page. Mbeki, Nairobi, orphan survives by selling phone chargers in traffic. 52 names, 52 countdowns. "I'm not rescuing them," he told Cassandra, voice like tracing paper. "I'm redirecting what I never deserved." He thought of his own childhood in coal-soot alleys, stealing bread, outliving his siblings by sheer meanness. Money had come later, crashing in like a tidal wave until he forgot what dry land felt like. Now, dying, he finally saw shore. "People will never believe you," Cassandra warned. "Good," he said, coughing blood into a handkerchief. "Belief is a privilege too pricey." He signed transfers with trembling loops, 1 per 4 drip. Every signature shortened his breath but lengthened a girl's horizon. In a notebook he scribbled a mantra: "A life worth dying for is a life lived twice." When the morphine settled, he dreamed not of angels but of courtrooms filled with silent girls turning their inheritance into megaphones. Somewhere a syringe clicked and the world darkened to the color of absolution. 5 floors beneath the penthouse, Cassandra spread 52 folders across a mahogany table that smelled of dust and insomnia. Identical spines hid galaxies of grief. Knife-jiggling street kids, 10 school tutors, faces nobody famous would save. She filed them by wedding date, Mondays through Sundays until either December or Silas's last breath. A slim ledger titled Contingencies lay at the head, listing escape routes, burner phones, and scholarships already wired to Swiss banks. Silas trusted timing, not governments. Cassandra tapped a key, A wall screen flared to life, mapping each girl to a trust, a deed, a deferred university letter. The data looked like constellations only she could read, yet outside chaos boiled, welfare raids, paparazzi bounties, and illness ticking louder upstairs. She whispered their names, Amira, Gia, Lean, Samira, Ruth, afraid to mispronounce Hope. A news alert flashed, marriage number 48 today. The world never cared that each union vanished at dawn, outrage needs no facts. Cassandra's phone chimed again. She called the investigator buried in adoption list shadows. Status on number 49? Found her by a Warsaw train station, he rasped. She's in. Good. Send the papers. She glanced at the clock, 9:16 a.m. In 3 hours limo doors would slam, cameras would feast on Silas's gaunt profile, and fresh petitions would bloom online. By sunset she would sit beside an ICU bed coaxing a final signature before morphine blurred lines. Her coffee tasted like rust, a penalty for the secret she carried. Every signature also erased another piece of her anonymity. Still, she deleted the alert, straightened the folders, and inhaled steadiness. Somewhere girl number 50 was praying for impossible rescue, unaware a dying stranger had already carved her name into tomorrow. Cassandra traced the ledger's leather cover, vowing to bleed her own credibility before letting a single page be lost to bureaucracy or delay. The next morning Cassandra met Silas in the law library he kept hidden behind a false wall. First edition volumes, dust dancing in slanted sunbeams, smell of cedar disguising formaldehyde. She carried a thick brochure from an international charity, hopeful for compromise, but Silas waved it away with tremoring fingers. Charities launder guilt, he rasped. They dilute money until it forgets who needs it. Cassandra argued that foundations offered tax shields and positive headlines. Silas chuckled, an old radiator wheeze, and pointed to a scrap of newspaper taped to a globe. It showed a refugee camp whose funds had evaporated in administrative costs. Systems delay justice, he said, coughing into his sleeve. I don't have time for delay. He gestured toward the folders lining the shelves like silent witnesses. Every extra signature, every board meeting vote, is another night a child sleeps under danger. Cassandra lifted a book on nonprofit law, heavy enough to crush a mouse, and finally understood his impatience. Bureaucracy could outlive him, could devour the estate in audits, could bury 52 futures beneath polite correspondence. She closed the charity brochure and placed it on a pile labeled refused. Silas relaxed, as if another clot had passed. Middlemen rewrite intent, he whispered. I want my ink touching their names and nothing in between. Sunlight fell across his liver-spotted hands, turning them translucent, mapping blue veins like rivers on parchment. Cassandra noticed how little those hands might have left to sign. She slid the next consent form toward him, marriage number 48, and watched his pen hover, trembling, before carving one more crooked blessing. Somewhere a clock chimed 10. Outside, taxis honked impatiently. Inside, two lonely conspirators traded comfort for velocity, praying haste could outrun death. How Silas found the girls required tunnels Cassandra still struggled to imagine. It began with Caleb Ghost Navarro, a grizzled ex-Interpol agent who now drifted through black market adoption forums the way divers navigate wrecks. From a basement flat in Lisbon lit by a single bare bulb, Ghost scraped encrypted chat rooms where traffickers haggled over children like livestock. He copied snippets, ages, injuries, last seen train stations, then cross-checked them against missing person bulletins Interpol no longer bothered to update. When patterns emerged, he pinged Cassandra through a secure line, speaking in riddles. Bluebird in Warsaw needs daylight, or Lotus on Route 24 is fading. Cassandra decoded locations, bounced funds to extraction teams, and filed emergency travel visas under humanitarian clauses. Every successful retrieval ended with Ghost burning hard drives in a rusty drum behind a graffiti-stained warehouse. He kept no trophies, only a ledger of favors owed. Favors Silas paid in untraceable cryptocurrency and rare art pieces that disappeared into Zurich vaults. A month earlier, Ghost had nearly been cornered in Bucharest when a broker recognized him from an old wanted poster. The ensuing alley fight left Ghost limping and 2 criminals hospitalized. He joked about retiring, but Cassandra wired triple his usual fee and the hunt continued. At nights, Ghost listened to city sirens and prayed none were for him. In the penthouse, Silas tracked little pins on a digital map, each representing a girl now waiting in a safe house with hot soup and a passport bearing a brand new name. Predators hoard children, Silas muttered during one midnight call. We're hijacking the horde. Ghost just grunted and signed off, already tunneling toward the next flicker of desperation on his dark web radar. The legal hack itself was elegant in its ugliness, a loophole hidden inside dusty colonial statutes no modern parliament had bothered to repeal. Cassandra discovered it while researching guardianship alternatives for trafficked minors. In certain jurisdictions, property transferred by marriage could not be clawed back by distant relatives, governments, or even international sanctions, provided the union was registered before a licensed clerk and dissolved by mutual consent within a cooling-off period. The law had been drafted to protect aristocrats from dowry disputes. Now it protected invisible children from oblivion. Cassandra confirmed with 3 independent scholars, an Oxford historian, a Manila probate judge, a retired Nigerian magistrate, all appalled yet fascinated. She outlined the process on a single laminated card Silas kept by his bedside. Step 1. File marriage license. Step 2. Execute immediate spousal transfer of predetermined assets. Step 3. Wait 24 hours. Step 4. File joint annulment citing incompatibility. Step 5. Register irrevocable trust in minor's name. Each step bore tiny red flags. Consent laws, potential trafficking accusations, financial crimes alerts. But Silas's team of night owl lawyers preemptively filed disclosures with child protection agencies, framing each act as an emergency guardianship arrangement sanctioned by medical prognosis. The agencies balked, but the paperwork was impeccable. Meanwhile, Cassandra drafted a contingency clause stipulating that if any court overturned the marriages, the trusts would auto-convert into offshore entities answerable only to the beneficiary at 18. It's chess, she told Silas one evening while rain hammered the skylight. We're moving bishops along shadowed diagonals while everyone else plays checkers. Silas managed a thin smile. Let them scream about morals, he wheezed. Morals never fed a starving kid. She placed the laminated card back on the nightstand, its plastic edges glinting like a scalpel. Precise, cold, necessary. Annulment mornings felt like baptisms in reverse. At 4:30 a.m., the courthouse janitor unlocked a side door, letting Cassandra wheel Silas past mop buckets and vending machines humming like tired bees. No press, no bouquets, just the metallic stench of disinfectant and the echo of gurney wheels on linoleum. The same clerk who married them yesterday now waited with sleepy eyes, clutching a fresh stack of forms. Amira stood nearby in jeans 2 sizes too big, wedding dress already folded into a paper shopping bag. Her hair smelled of hotel shampoo and her eyes flicked from Silas's four-pole to the courthouse clock counting down her last minutes as wife. The clerk cleared his throat, read the annulment statement, and slid 2 pens across the counter. Silas signed first, letters wobbling like loose fence posts. Cassandra guided Amira's trembling hand next. When the papers were stamped, an audible click echoed, a door shutting on scandal, another opening on freedom. Amira looked up as if expecting confetti, but celebration wasn't part of the ritual. Instead, Cassandra pressed a debit card into her palm, preloaded with expense money, and whispered the address of a guardian family vetted months earlier. Amira nodded, too stunned to speak, then did something no girl before her had done. She hugged Silas. His frail body tensed, unsure, then melted into the embrace. Cameras would have sold that image for millions, but only a janitor witnessed it, pausing his mop mid-swipe. 30 seconds later, Amira slipped through the side door into dawn light, anonymity already closing around her like a cloak. Silas watched the door swing shut, exhaled a rattle, and whispered, "One down, 51 to go." Cassandra wheeled him back to the ambulance, sunrise painting the parking lot the color of surrender. Later that day, in a quiet conference room overlooking the river, Cassandra assembled the newly arrived girls, 5 so far, around a rectangular table littered with juice boxes and dictionaries. Silas, too weak to attend, appeared on a tablet propped against a water pitcher. His voice crackled through tinny speakers. "I didn't bring you here to thank me," he began, eyes glazing with morphine fog. "I brought you here to outrun the cages built for you." The girls exchanged wary glances. Cassandra translated into Portuguese for Lean, Arabic for Samira, and broken Polish for Zofia. Silas continued, "Tomorrow each of you will leave for different countries. New schools await. Your names may change, but your stories are yours to weaponize against anyone who doubts you." He paused, swallowing pain. "All I ask is silence until you're safe. After that, scream as loud as you want." One by one, the girls nodded. Cassandra slid non-disclosure forms across the table, deliberately written in plain language. "You owe nothing. You keep everything. You disappear until it's time to speak." Each girl pricked a finger for biometric verification. A small red dot beside her signature sealed the deal. When Zofia hesitated, Cassandra knelt beside her. "You don't owe him gratitude," she whispered. "Just live so large they can't erase you again." Zofia inhaled, signed, and wiped her finger on a tissue printed with tiny gold cranes. Silas watched the signatures populate a digital ledger in real time, each flicker of approval like a heartbeat on a flatline monitor. "Good," he whispered. "Good." The call ended. Cassandra closed the laptop and met 12 bewildered eyes. "You're free," she said, voice thick. "Freedom's scary. That means it's real." Beyond the tinted windows, river water churned under storm clouds, carrying secrets toward the sea. Outside St. Augustine's oncology wing, the protest barricades buckled under the weight of grief. A woman in a worn coat vaulted the police line, a photo of a smiling 12-year-old clutched like a crucifix. Her voice, equal parts fury and tremor, ricocheted off ambulance doors. "Silas Grant kidnapped my daughter." Cassandra, exiting with discharge papers, froze. The mother, Rosa Delgado, shoved the photograph inches from her face. The girl's eyes matched folder number 15. Marisol Delgado, trafficked from Honduras, recovered 6 weeks ago. Records said Rosa had overdosed after Marisol vanished and been listed as deceased. The report was wrong. Guards dragged Rosa back, but Cassandra shouted, "Wait!" They met in a corridor that smelled of iodine and fear. Cassandra explained the rescue, the annulment, the new passport waiting an ocean away. Rosa's knees buckled, grief and relief detonating together. She sobbed that traffickers bragged Marisol. Was sold to a foreign husband, words that haunted every night since. Now the supposed predator lay one floor above, wealth dripping into 4 pumps, and Rosa didn't know whether to strangle him or thank him. Cassandra promised a flight, a counselor-mediated reunion. Cameras swarmed, hungry for outrage, but only captured Rosa pressing the photo to her lips, whispering prayers. By evening, tabloids twisted the scene into mother confronts pervert billionaire, yet Rosa stayed in Cassandra's office, signing confidentiality forms with trembling hands. Justice, Cassandra thought, wasn't a verdict. It was the brutal craft of stitching shattered stories back together without leaving blood on the thread. In that bleak waiting room, both women discovered a terrifying overlap, love so fierce it broke rules simply to stay alive. The air reeked of antiseptic, but hope thin as gauze finally seeped through. Father Gabriel Knox kept his chapel lit all night, stained glass saints bleeding pastel moons onto empty pews. Reporters dubbed him the priest who knew because 2 months ago he blessed Silas Grant's first secret ceremony. Now documentary crews camped outside Holy Mercy Parish, demanding he denounce the marriages he'd sanctified. Instead, Father Knox brewed thick coffee and waited for Cassandra beneath flickering candles. When she arrived, rain-soaked, he asked, "How heavy is a soul when the body signing papers is already half gone?" "He isn't saving souls," she said, sinking into a pew. "He's saving futures." The priest sighed. Same thing, different clocks. He recalled that warehouse wedding. Silas shaking in a wheelchair, the bride, lean, whispering thank you in Vietnamese. Tonight he slid a wooden box across the pew. Inside lay sealed envelopes, each labeled with a girl's new name and a date 5 years away. "Letters," he said. "They wrote them after the annulments, asked me to guard them until the world forgets." Cassandra lifted one, heavier than confession, lighter than evidence. "If the courts turn on you," the priest said, "these words prove free will, not exploitation." Thunder rattled the stained glass. Cassandra pictured judges reading those letters, realizing they'd chased the wrong sin. She promised copies to Silas's legal team. Outside, cameras flashed. Father Knox faced them and declared, "I blessed a dying man who traded his last breath for children no one else would bless. If that's heresy, carve it on my tomb." By dawn his sermon flooded timelines, half the internet cheering, half demanding his collar. The bishop's office issued a terse statement, neither defending nor condemning, proof that even faith checked polls before choosing sides. 2 days later, chaos arrived in blue vests and clipped accents. The UN Special Rapporteur on Trafficking stood at Silas's penthouse door, cameras in tow, brandishing a warrant to inspect potential violations of international child protection statutes. Cassandra met them in the marble foyer, heartbeat tapping Morse code. Silas, pale as envelope paper, refused hospital transfer, insisting on speaking from his recliner amid saline drips. Dr. Asha Karim surveyed oil paintings and oxygen tanks with equal suspicion. "Where are the minors currently under this man's guardianship?" she demanded, microphones hungrier than her voice. Cassandra cited privacy law and offered redacted documents. "You could be laundering children like assets," Karim pressed. Silas chuckled, a dry rattle. "Assets appreciate. Children heal." Her team searched guest rooms, empty except for travel cribs repurposed as luggage bins. Malik, Silas's nurse, guarded a locked study holding encrypted drives and Father Knox's copies. Mid-search, alarms shrieked. Smoke flares tossed by masked paparazzi on the service elevator. In the chaos, 3 safe-house addresses leaked from an AIDS briefcase. Hours later, those locations were hit by unknown gunmen. 2 girls vanished into the night. News shows plastered Silas's face beside crime scene tape, calling it karma. Cassandra spent dawn dialing Ghost Navarro, Find them before someone sells them back. Ghost cursed and launched GPS sweeps of borders. Meanwhile, Kareem froze Silas's remaining assets pending a closed-door hearing. Markets reacted like hailstones. Grant Maritime shares fell 12% by lunch. Silas watched ticker symbols bleed red and whispered, "Let it fall if it buys time." Time, Cassandra feared, was exactly what they just lost. The emergency hearing convened in a courtroom ringed by bulletproof glass and pundit predictions. Silas arrived by ambulance, tubes beneath a wool blanket, while Cassandra wheeled carts of exhibits. Trust deeds, annulments, Father Knox's letters. Judge Miriam Okafor, famed for glacier calm, began, "The court seeks clarity, not clickbait." Prosecutors claimed the marriages masked grooming, citing the missing girls. Cassandra requested the letters be read in chambers. The judge chose transparency. Letter 1, Khmer, translated aloud, "He did not touch me. He planted a forest where hunger used to live." A hush spread. Letter 2, Portuguese, "I own nothing, not even my birthday. Today I own tomorrow." Letter 3, Polish, "If you undo my trust, you undo me." Each testimony pried outrage from the room until only unease remained. Prosecutor Shepard showed footage of the first wedding, rings zoomed in like evidence. Cassandra countered with 5 a.m. annulment clips, no crowds, no coercion, just paperwork and prepaid taxis. 20 letters were read before lunch. By recess, Judge Okafor looked older, each word etching new lines across her brow. Outside, reporters wrestled to balance horror and gratitude. Algorithms couldn't decide which emotion sold better. During recess, Ghost texted Cassandra, "Found one girl. Safe. Tracking the other." She pocketed the phone, heart pounding. In afternoon session, the judge lifted the asset freeze temporarily. Investigation ongoing. The internet roared, half crying injustice, half posting tear emoji quotes from the letters. That night, trolls and poets repeated the refrain. He planted a forest where hunger used to live. Midnight financial shows debated whether morality had a market cap, while activists live-streamed candlelit vigils outside. The confusion felt biblical. One faction chanting, "Lock him up," another singing, "Amazing Grace," for a man they'd never meet. The tide turned with a voice no algorithm had flagged. "Ella Nyambai, bride number 7, 14, newly enrolled at a Johannesburg boarding school." During lunch, she slipped into the media lab, opened the podcast mic, and spoke in a clear alto that crossed continents. "They call me a victim," she began. "Yet nobody asked what I was before the wedding. A statistic waiting to die." Her 12-minute audio hit stream, auto-transcribed into 15 languages. Ella described sleeping beneath a highway, scavenging spoiled fruit, dreaming of medicine she'd never afford. Then came cameras, a courthouse, a ring that wasn't a ring but a key, and a lawyer named Cassandra who told her to run, to study, to write these words someday. "Silas Grant never held my hand," Ella said. "He held open a door." Within an hour, the clip logged 10 million plays, boosted by hip-hop influencers and academic feminists alike. Hashtag Doorknock Cage trended, edging out war headlines. Critics accused Cassandra of scripting the speech, but forensics traced the upload to the school server, unsanctioned. The headmaster suspended Ella. Classmates taped handwritten copies of her words to every locker. In the penthouse, Silas listened through earbuds, tears leaking down weathered cheeks. "One forest's growing," he whispered. Cassandra allowed herself a rare smile before diving back into crisis calls. The UN team requested another visit. Rallies shifted from anger to curiosity. Somewhere in a safe house, the still-missing girl watched Ella's video on a smuggled phone and decided, despite instinct, to trust the next rescuer. The story mutated, alive, ungovernable, exactly how virality devours certainty and spits out possibility. News algorithms reweighted sentiment overnight, ad agencies paused campaigns, unsure whether rage or hope would sell more cereal tomorrow. Even cynics felt the tilt, like subway cars lurching onto unexplored tracks. The 49th wedding began under bruised skies that threatened rain but never delivered, as if the clouds themselves halted to watch. Gia and Becky, barefoot, hair braided with single gold thread, stood beside Silas in a derelict courthouse repurposed after yesterday's bomb scare. Cassandra read the vows because the clerk refused duty. His hands shook too violently. Silas managed 3 words, "with all assets," before his knees buckled. Oxygen hissed, pen dropped, heartbeat monitor spiked red. For a fraction of forever, everyone froze. Gia, Cassandra, the lone security guard live streaming from his phone. Then Silas pitched forward like a felled oak. Cassandra caught his shoulders. The guard's stream captured her scream. Paramedics arrived 90 seconds later, but cancer keeps its own stopwatch. As they shocked his paper-thin chest, Silas's eyes found Gia's. "Run," he mouthed. Shock pads fired again. Rain exploded against shattered windows. Gia sobbed and signed the license anyway, tracing his limp hand with hers until the ink sealed. The paramedic called time. 3:14 p.m. outside. Protesters heard the siren pitch flatten and cheered, assuming justice. Inside, Cassandra whispered goodbye to a man history would never categorize neatly. She placed his ring on Gia's trembling palm and slid the annulment papers into her pocket. Tomorrow's promise Silas wouldn't witness. Cameras documented everything but intimacy, the way Malik closed Silas's lids, the way Cassandra hid her hysteria behind procedural diction, the way Gia kissed the ring before sprinting into a waiting sedan. By sunset, the clip of Silas collapsing looped on every platform, hashtags morphing in real time from hashtag doornotcage to hashtag devildown. Like skyrocketed, empathy lagged. The man who'd orchestrated 51 rescues died one shy of his Ledger's dream. Across the city, 2 newly recovered girls learned the news and cried into each other's borrowed coats, unsure whom to mourn, monster or miracle. For days later, the funeral no one planned unfolded in a rain-soaked cemetery overlooking the harbor Silas once filled with cargo ships. No press passes, no eulogies, no marble angels, just 52 girls arriving in city buses donated by an anonymous benefactor. They wore identical white hoodies instead of gowns. On the back, a single word stitched in every language they spoke, forest. Cassandra stood at the grave's edge clutching the final annulment form, unsigned. Father Knox read Psalm 82, defend the weak and fatherless, his voice cracking on fatherless. Gia pressed her palm to the coffin lid before it lowered, whispering, "I ran." Rosa Delgado, reunited with Marisol the night before, laid 2 paper cranes folded from the hate mail envelopes Silas once received, symbol turned inside out. Rain blurred ink, erasing accusations sentence by sentence. As soil thudded onto the casket, each girl pulled a seedling from her pocket, mango, cedar, olive, baobab, and planted it in the mound, transforming grave into nursery. Cameras hid behind hedges, lenses fogging because even scandal-hungry tabloids sensed they were intruding on a covenant bigger than clicks. When the last seedling stood upright, Cassandra read Silas's unsent words scrawled in his notebook margin. "If you're hearing this, I failed to finish the ledger. Finish it for me." She lifted a tiny silver key that opened the vault beneath his penthouse study. Every girl touched the key, chain-linking a promise. Police escorts offered rides home. The girls refused, choosing instead to walk through downtown traffic in silent procession. White hoodies glowing against neon billboards that once vilified their benefactor. Bystanders filmed, but nobody jeered. It rained harder, yet none of the seedlings drowned. Their leaves shimmered like currency minted solely for the brave. Cassandra unlocked the vault at dawn, live streaming to a secure channel where the girls watched from safe houses and dormitories worldwide. Inside, a single projector, ceiling speakers, and one leather chair Silas never lived to occupy again. Motion sensors triggered the playback. Silas appeared on screen wearing hospital gown and mischievous grin. "If you're seeing this, my expiration date finally caught up," he said. "Good. Dead men are harder to cancel." He acknowledged every rumor, predator, profiteer, messiah complex, then shrugged. "Believe what sells. Meanwhile, you 52 are shareholders of everything I stole from a rigged world." Diagrams flashed. Offshore trusts converting to onshore educational endowments, property titles transferring to spousal nonprofits, contingency algorithms that funneled dividends directly into microloan platforms managed by the girls themselves. "Genius, monster, labels expire, too," he continued. "But hospitals still bill the poor. Courts still cost rent money. So here's my final hack." He announced a matched fund clause. For every dollar each girl donated to another vulnerable child, the estate would release 10 more from a silent partner account, compounding annually. Screen text lit up with the clause's activation key. Gia entered it from her phone, and the lock turned green. Silas concluded, "Die loudly enough and the world looks. While they're staring, move the money where screams can't reach." That's all I did. Now it's your turn. The feed cut. Vault lights revealed stacks of prepaid debit cards, encrypted tablets, and 52 passports bearing their new surnames. Grant. Cassandra whispered, "Forrest." Across time zones, replies pinged, "Forrest." A digital canopy took root in squares of code, reaching toward children none of them had met. Yet, a year passed like a single exhaled word. Newspapers moved on, but the ledger's ripples did not. Lean Grant opened a free clinic network in Ho Chi Minh City. Billboards displayed her stethoscope beneath the hoodie logo. Samira Grant argued refugee cases before the European Court of Human Rights, citing her own annulment as precedent. Sophia Grant hacked outdated adoption databases, exposing traffickers who once hunted her. Ella Nyambai headlined TED Global, Whiplash Morality and the Economics of Outrage, earning a standing ovation from CEOs who swore they'd restructure philanthropy, though quarterly reports remained skeptical. The two girls abducted during the UN raid resurfaced in Belize, rescued by Ghost Navarro's covert team. The raid footage later trained law enforcement AI to detect safehouse leaks. Father Knox faced ecclesiastical trial and received a written censure, which he framed above the confessional as a conversation starter. As successes multiplied, critics searched for cracks, tax delays, fraudulent receipts, broken NDAs. But each audit revealed meticulous compliance, as if Silas's ghost still proofread every decimal. Cassandra, stripped of her bar license for violating procedural norms, accepted the verdict and pivoted into global guardianship consultancy, drafting the run clause for emergent rescue trusts adopted by 3 governments. Whenever a journalist asked if she missed courtrooms, she answered, "I prefer classrooms," then taught seminars on weaponizing law for good. On the anniversary of Silas's death, the 52 released a joint statement, "We were children before we were headlines. Children grow into forests." The statement linked to an interactive map showing 311 scholarships funded in Silas's name, each marker a sapling icon. Comment sections tried to reignite outrage. Most users scrolled past, distracted by the next scandal. But kids in shelters clicked the map and whispered new, impossible verbs: study, travel, live. The internet apology never came. No trending hashtag admitted fault for calling a dying man pervert before facts emerged. Algorithms don't confess, they pivot. Silas Grant's Wikipedia page still carries a dispute banner, philanthropist or predator, and maybe that's fitting. Complexity rarely earns clean summaries. Yet on a bright spring morning, Marisol Delgado stood at the edge of a university quad, acceptance letter in hand, hoodie fluttering like a flag. Around the globe, 51 sisters FaceTimed, cheering through screens. Cassandra watched from a park bench, coffee finally hot, and realized the ledger was complete. She uploaded the last annulment to public domain, time-stamped, irrevocable. Then she drafted one more document, a user-friendly guide titled Forest Protocol. Rapid asset transfer for at-risk minors, free to download, impossible to trademark. Critics called it reckless. NGOs called it a blueprint. She hit publish anyway. Maybe chaos would follow, maybe change would. As dusk settled, the 52 scheduled a simultaneous post across social media. A single image of seedlings breaking sidewalk concrete, captioned, "From cracks we rise." Within minutes, the picture clogged feeds, eliciting debates, think pieces, parody memes. And beneath the noise, comments from kids who understood. How do I plant one? That night, if you'd walked by any city alley lit by a flickering phone screen, you might have heard a new kind of vow, soft, determined, contagious. It sounded like soil being turned where pavement once ruled. If this story moved you, smash that like button, hit subscribe for more jaw-dropping tales, share it with every friend who loves a moral plot twist, and drop your hardest lesson learned in the comments. Let's grow this forest together, one click, one voice, one impossible door at a time. ***.